For centuries, people have wondered if the Bible could truly predict modern events. One of the most talked about passages is found in Ezekiel 38 to 39, where a leader named Gog from the land of Magog leads a huge alliance, including Persia, against Israel in the latter days. Those ancient names may sound strange, but today's headlines tell a different story. In 2025, the world watches anxiously as Iran, once known as Persia, grows stronger alongside Russia and Turkey. They formed a loose military and political alliance, operating together in Syria and beyond. Could this be what Ezekiel warned about? Scholars point out that Iran is explicitly named in Ezekiel 38.5 as one of the key nations that will join Gog in a massive end-time invasion, alongside modern-day Ethiopia, Libya, and others. blog.hriresearch.org. In Ezekiel 38, Israel is described as living in peace, dwelling without walls. Before this alliance strikes, reddit.com. This peaceful, rebuilt Israel seems like the country many recognize today. Here is how the prophecy is described. Persia, Cush and Put will be with them. Gomer and Beth Togarmah from the far north. Many peoples are with you. blog.hriresearch.org. Modern interpreters often map these names. Persia, Iran, today's modern Islamic Republic. Magog, Rosh, Russia, the powerful northern nation. Gomer, Togarmah, Turkey, Armenia, parts of Eastern Europe. Other names like Cush and Put represent Sudan and Libya. IsraelHQ.com, TruthUnchained.com. As of 2025, military cooperation among Russia, Iran, and Turkey, especially visible in Syria, mirrors the coming alliance first described in Ezekiel 38, threecrosses.net. Ezekiel's prophecy is not vague. It clearly speaks of a future attack on Israel. God says this assault will happen in the latter days, after Israel is established and secure. Focus on Jerusalem.com. It's not just a political war, it's spiritual. The purpose? To show the world God's power when he defends his people. So will I show my holiness, and all nations shall know that I am the Lord. mail.biblehub.com. The war ends quickly. Israel's enemies are overwhelmed by natural disasters, internal chaos, and divine judgment. Earthquakes, plague, hailstones, fire, brimstone, showing God's intervention and sanctifying his name. There are 4 signs that make 2025 feel like Ezekiel's War of Gog and Magog. Israel is living in relative peace, its cities thriving and unfortified. Iran is openly hostile, pledging to destroy Israel and growing closer to Russia and Turkey. Geopolitical alignment echoes ancient prophecy. Tehran, Moscow, Ankara forming military ties in Syria and beyond. threecrosses.net, reddit.com. Israel is rebuilt and settled, exactly the conditions Ezekiel said would exist before the attack. raptureready.com. Many believers now cry out, could this be the war Ezekiel warned us about? Believers say this is not a call to panic, but to watchfulness and prayer. Jesus' own words in Luke 21 remind us to stay alert in the last days. This war isn't the end. It's meant to show that God is real, that he protects his people, and that there is a higher purpose, even in the midst of chaos. The year is 2025. Across the world, people are glued to their screens. News headlines read, Iran threatens retaliation after Israeli strike. Russia, Turkey back Iran's position. Mideast conflict may spark global crisis. The world seems like it's on the edge of a major war. To many Bible readers, it feels like prophecy is unfolding before their eyes. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, we read that in the latter days, a powerful leader from the north will form an alliance with other nations to invade Israel. This leader is called Gog, and he comes from a land called Magog. Most scholars believe Magog points to modern-day Russia due to its location and historical references. Along with Gog, other nations join in the attack. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Ezekiel 38:5. Persia is ancient Iran. Cush is associated with modern Sudan or Ethiopia. Put refers to Libya or North Africa. Ezekiel then adds 2 more names, Gomer and all his troops, Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops. Ezekiel 38:6. Gomer and Togarmah are linked to parts of Turkey and Eastern Europe. Now look at the 2025 world map. Iran, Persia, has increased its weapons program and influence across the Middle East. Russia, Magog, is actively supplying Iran with military technology and aircraft. Turkey, Togarmah, once friendly with Israel, now sides more openly with Muslim nations in opposition to Israeli actions. These three nations are, right now, cooperating militarily, especially in Syria, right on Israel's northern border. Syria is not named directly in Ezekiel's prophecy, but in modern times it plays a major role in the alignment of these nations. Iran has built military bases across Syria. Russia has naval and air force installations in Syria. Turkey controls parts of northern Syria and uses it as a base to extend its influence. In 2025, Israeli jets strike targets in Syria almost monthly, trying to stop Iran from building a stronghold. Every time Iran responds with threats, and sometimes with missiles. The Golan Heights, a mountainous area Israel controls on the Syrian border, becomes a flashpoint. Bible readers say this could be where the invasion begins. Ezekiel tells us that the attack on Israel won't look like a traditional war. Instead, it will be like a sudden storm, a vast army from many nations, coming to plunder and seize resources. You will say, I will go up against a land of unwalled villages, to seize spoil and carry off plunder. Ezekiel 38:11-12. Today, Israel is wealthy with natural gas fields, advanced technology, and strategic water systems. In a world starving for resources, Israel is a tempting target. Some wonder why this hasn't happened already. The Bible says it would happen when Israel is living in safety, seemingly unafraid. In 2025, that condition appears to be fulfilled. Despite frequent threats, Israel's cities are open, its economy is booming, and most people live in confidence, not fear. Could this be the time Ezekiel foresaw? To Bible believers, it's not just about politics, it's about spiritual truth. This alignment of Iran, Russia, and Turkey didn't happen by accident. It lines up with a vision written over 2,500 years ago, now reflected in modern headlines. As the storm clouds gather, the question becomes louder. Is this the war Ezekiel warned us about? In the book of Ezekiel, God calls Israel the center of the nations. Ezekiel 5:5. That statement sounded strange to ancient readers. Israel was tiny, just a narrow strip of land surrounded by great empires like Babylon and Egypt. But today, in 2025, Israel really is at the center of global attention. A small country with a big role, not just in the Middle East, but in history, politics, military power, and prophecy. For over 1,800 years, the Jewish people lived scattered around the world. Israel did not exist as a country, but in 1948, that changed. Israel was reborn as a nation in one day, just as Isaiah prophesied, Isaiah 66:8. That rebirth was the first piece of the puzzle. Ezekiel 37 describes the valley of dry bones coming back to life, a symbol of Israel's rebirth from death and exile. Many believe this already happened with the return of the Jews and the restoration of the land. Now Ezekiel 38-39 picks up where that vision leaves off. Once the bones live again, a great war comes. Ezekiel 38:8-12 describes a time when Israel is gathered from many nations, living peacefully in unwalled villages, a phrase that means open and secure cities. You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, to loot and plunder. Ezekiel 38:11-12. In 2025, this describes Israel perfectly. High-tech cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are open to the world. No border walls around most cities. Immigrants from over 100 nations have returned to the land. Wealth from technology, natural gas, and agriculture. The spoil mentioned in Ezekiel could be Israel's. Offshore gas fields like Leviathan and Tamar. Desalination and water tech, critical in a water-scarce region. Cybersecurity and AI breakthroughs. All of these make Israel a target of envy, just like the prophecy says. Look at Israel on the map. To the north, Syria and Lebanon, where Hezbollah, Iran's proxy, builds missiles. To the east, Iran, threatening to wipe Israel off the map. To the south, Hamas in Gaza and Iran-backed militias in Yemen. Even to the west, voices in Europe criticize Israel's right to defend itself. And yet, Israel survives, like a thorn in the side of the nations, small but unmovable. Just as Zechariah 12:3 says, "On that day when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who try to lift it will hurt themselves." Ezekiel focuses on Israel as a whole, but Jerusalem always ends up in the center. Jerusalem is holy to Jews, Muslims, and Christians, but only the Jewish people have made it their capital again. Every major peace negotiation, war threat, or protest somehow circles back to Jerusalem, and in 2025, Israel controls all of Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount. This remains a deep point of tension between Israel and the Muslim world. Could a decision about Jerusalem trigger the war Ezekiel warned us about? Israel's existence is more than history. It is spiritual proof, a sign that the God of Abraham still keeps his promises. That's why the world can't ignore Israel, and that's why the nations rage. In the Bible, Israel is the clock, and right now the hands seem close to midnight. Could the center of the earth become the center of war? The world watches as tensions grow between Israel and Iran in 2025. Warships gather in the Mediterranean. Troops move in Syria. Missiles fly from Gaza and Lebanon. Israel strikes back. People ask, is this just another Middle East conflict, or is it the war Ezekiel spoke about? To understand the answer, we must look at the heart of the prophecy, Gog and his invasion plan. In Ezekiel 38:2, God says, "Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal." Many Bible scholars believe Magog refers to lands around modern Russia and Central Asia. Meshech and Tubal point toward parts of Turkey and former Soviet states. Gog is not a place, but a leader, possibly a title like Pharaoh or Czar. This Gog is the main enemy in Ezekiel's prophecy. He leads a military coalition against Israel in the last days. His mission is clear: attack and plunder a peaceful Israel. Ezekiel 38:5-6 lists Gog's allies: Persia, modern Iran; Cush, likely Sudan or Ethiopia; Put, likely Libya or North Africa; Gomer and Beth Togarmah, linked to Turkey and surrounding regions. In today's world, Iran is already hostile toward Israel and supports terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Russia backs Iran militarily and politically. Turkey has cooled its relationship with Israel and aligned more with Islamic nations. Libya and Sudan face chaos, making them easy partners for extremists. This coalition seems to be forming right now in 2025. Military drills, defense pacts, and shared anti-Israel rhetoric are strengthening these bonds. God says this coalition will come to attack Israel for one reason: to seize, spoil, and carry off plunder against a peaceful and unsuspecting people. Ezekiel 38:12. In simple words, greed. What might they want from Israel? Natural gas from massive offshore reserves. Water technology, especially as droughts worsen. Military secrets in high-tech defense systems. Religious reasons, especially Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. But the real reason is deeper: spiritual hatred. The nations oppose God's chosen people in God's name. I will bring you against my land so that the nations may know me. Ezekiel 38:16. God is in control even when the enemy thinks he's winning. Ezekiel 38:9 says, "You will advance like a cloud covering the land." This sounds like a massive military attack, possibly using air power, drones, and missiles. A surprise move from the north, through Syria and Lebanon. Modern-day Syria is already a base for Iranian troops, Russian advisors, and Hezbollah fighters. In 2025, reports show Iranian missile factories and drone launch sites just miles from Israel's border. Ezekiel 38:15 adds, "You will come from your place out of the far north, a great company and a mighty army." Russia is the only major power directly far north of Israel, making many believe Gog could be a Russian leader, backed by Iran and Turkey. In 2025, Israel is secure, but surrounded. Her enemies are united. Her land is full of resources. Jerusalem is under her control, and the world's attention is fixed on her. Just as Ezekiel said it would be. When Ezekiel saw Gog's army rising in his vision, he must have felt fear. But God reminded him, and us, I will bring Gog against my land, and I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations. Ezekiel 38:16-23. God is not silent, he is setting the stage, and when the invasion begins, it won't be Israel who defends herself. God will fight for her. The armies come like a storm. The skies are thick with warplanes. The borders shake as missiles fly. From the mountains in the north, tanks and troops pour into the land of Israel. This is the scene Ezekiel described over 2,500 years ago. And just when the world believes Israel will be crushed, God himself steps in. Ezekiel 38:18-19 begins with a strong warning. When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused. There will be a great earthquake in the land. This is no ordinary battle. It's not just Israel versus Iran or Israel versus Russia. This war becomes God versus Gog. The moment the armies invade, nature rebels. A massive earthquake shakes Israel and the surrounding nations. The mountains tremble, walls fall, cities split, troops scatter. Confusion breaks out among Gog's own army. Ezekiel 38:21 says, I will summon a sword against Gog. Every man's sword will be against his brother. That means Gog's army turns on itself. Panic spreads. Allies fight each other. Then comes something even more terrifying. I will execute judgment upon him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur. Ezekiel 38:22. Just like in the days of Egypt, God uses natural disasters to fight the enemy. Plague breaks out in the enemy camps. Giant hailstones crush vehicles and weapons. Fire and brimstone, possibly a mix of divine fire or modern weapons gone out of control, destroy parts of the invasion force. This isn't just a military victory. This is a supernatural judgment. The world watches as Gog's mighty army is destroyed in days, maybe even hours. The nations are shocked. Reporters are speechless. Leaders freeze. Israel does not win because of her air force or technology. Israel is saved by God alone. Ezekiel 38:23 ends with God saying, And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. This is the real reason for the war, not to punish Israel, but to wake up the world, to prove once and for all that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is still on the throne. Today in 2025, Israel's enemies are getting bolder. Nations are gathering on its borders. The idea of fire from heaven may seem symbolic, but with advanced weapons, cyber attacks, and global instability, sudden chaos is very possible. Earthquakes have already struck parts of the Middle East this year. Could this be the setup for Ezekiel's prophecy? Throughout history, Israel has survived attack after attack. In 1948, 1967, 1973, every time the odds were against them, they won. Why? Because Israel has a promise, not from the United Nations, not from foreign allies, but from God himself. He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Psalm 100-21:4. When Gog invades, it won't be the end of Israel. It will be the beginning of something holy, a worldwide wake-up call. After the invasion ends and the dust settles, a strange and sobering scene unfolds. The greatest army in history lies broken across the hills of Israel, not by human hands, but by the hand of God himself. The Bible says that after God defeats Gog's massive alliance, Israel will spend months cleaning up the mess left behind. This is not a normal victory. It is a divine message, written in the wreckage of war. On that day, I will give Gog a burial place in Israel. It will block the way of travelers because Gog and all his hordes will be buried there. The place will be called the Valley of Hamon-Gog, meaning the multitude of Gog. This is not just symbolic. The Bible says it will take 7 months to bury the dead, Ezekiel 39:12. Special teams will be assigned to mark the bones for burial. A huge number of bodies and destroyed weapons will litter the land. This cleanup effort is so large that it becomes a full national project, a reminder of how serious the invasion was and how completely God crushed it. But it doesn't stop with burial. For 7 years, they will use them for fuel. Ezekiel 39:9. Yes, 7 full years. The people of Israel won't need to cut wood or import fuel. They will gather the weapons left behind, shields, bows, arrows, ancient words for modern tools, and burn them for energy. Some believe this could mean burning old vehicles or missile casings, breaking down military supplies for fuel or recycling, clearing away everything that belonged to the enemies of God. Again, this is more than practical. It is a picture of how completely the enemy will be defeated. Nothing will remain that could threaten Israel again. God's purpose for this war was not only to defend Israel, but to make a statement to the whole world. I will display my glory among the nations, and all the nations will see the punishment I inflict and the hand I lay on them. Ezekiel 39:21. This is God's wake-up call. The nations who joined Gog, Russia, Iran, Turkey, and others, will be humiliated. Their power will be broken, their lies exposed, and the world will ask, how did Israel survive? The answer will be clear, because their God defended them. The war also brings a change inside Israel. For many years, some Jewish people had turned away from God, but this miracle causes a national shift. From that day forward, the people of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God. Ezekiel 39:22. There will be a spiritual awakening. The people will return to faith. Their eyes will open to the God who saved them. And through Israel, God's name will be known again. The burial of Gog is not just the end of a war, it's the beginning of a new chapter. God shows his power. Israel rediscovers their faith. The world is reminded God is real. This is what makes Ezekiel 38-39 so unique. It's not just about politics or military strategy. It's about the return of God's presence in world affairs. When Gog's body lies buried in the valley, it won't just be a victory for Israel. It will be a warning to all who oppose God and a sign of hope for those who trust him. The war is over. Gog is dead. His army is gone. The valley of Hamon-Gog is filled with the buried remains of those who came against Israel. The weapons have been burned. The cities are safe again. The land is quiet, but forever changed. This final chapter of Ezekiel's prophecy speaks of a new season, not just for Israel, but for the whole world. It's a time of truth, healing, and the revealing of God's glory. Ezekiel 39:7 says, I will make my holy name known among my people Israel. I will no longer let my holy name be profaned, and the nations will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. After the war, there is no more confusion, no more debate. The nations who mocked God, who said Israel was just another country, they now know better. God's name is not just a word anymore. It is a force, a fire, a shield. His intervention in the war makes it clear to all, the God of Israel is alive and he defends his people. This event becomes a turning point in history. Many around the world begin to seek truth. Revival spreads. Eyes are opened. But the biggest change happens inside Israel. For many years, Israel was physically strong but spiritually weak. People lived by tradition or nationalism, but not all followed God with their hearts. That changes now. Ezekiel 39:29 says, I will no longer hide my face from them, for I will pour out my spirit on the people of Israel. This is the start of a spiritual awakening. People begin reading the scriptures again. Worship returns. Young people start asking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Many realize that the God who saved them from Gog is the same God who has been calling them all along. This outpouring of the Spirit prepares Israel for something even greater, the return of the Messiah, which other prophecies point to in the books of Daniel, Zechariah, and Revelation. In the aftermath of Gog's defeat, the world begins to rebuild. Nations that joined Gog are in political collapse. Some governments fall, new ones rise. People begin to distance themselves from hatred of Israel. Peace treaties are proposed, but now with respect. There is still tension in the world and more prophecies remain unfulfilled. But for a time there is a pause, a deep silence after the storm. And in that silence, people begin to reflect. Who is God? What just happened? What does it mean for me? This final chapter in Ezekiel 38 to 39 isn't just a war story. It's a wake-up call for our generation. The war of Gog and Magog shows that God keeps his promises. Israel still matters to God. The Bible is more than history, it's prophecy. God will defend his name and his people. If you're reading this in 2025 or beyond, and these things begin to happen around you, don't be afraid. Be alert, because the same God who protected Israel can save anyone who turns to him. Then they shall know that I am the Lord their God, because I sent them into exile among the nations, and then gathered them back to their own land, not leaving any of them behind. Ezekiel 39:28. God is not finished with Israel. God is not finished with the world. He is writing a bigger story, and this war is just one chapter. The best part is still to come.